happy summertime. I thought we were gonna escape the fire season, right? Because we had all that good rain. Anyway, so we'll call the meeting to order at 3:34. Go ahead and do a roll call. Thank you all for joining us today.
Jennifer?
Here.
Annette is absent and she let us know ahead of time. Amanda?
Here.
Lieutenant Constance also is not going to be here today, but she let us know ahead of time. Patrick?
Here.
Thank you. Thank you. Patrice also let us know that she wasn't going to be here in advance. Martin?
Here.
Oh, was supposed to be here.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's all.
And, Rosa?
Here.
Thank you. So we have a quorum with 6.
Something that I want. Thank you for that. So we'll go ahead and do the approval of member absences. And actually, two other boards do this, but it's something that we need to do. So, we heard the excused absences. Could I, receive a motion to approve, and in a second, we'll open it for discussion if there's anything for that?
Make a motion to approve the excused absence.
Thank you. First from Jennifer, second from Rosa. Any discussion on it? Well, all those in favor, we're gonna kind of cut to some chase. All those in favor, we can't do it this way. Say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay. Motion carried. Okay, thank you. All right. So approval of the minutes. Folks had a chance to take a look at the minutes. Any changes that have been seen by anyone? Everyone had a chance to look at it previous to this? Everyone's ready. Are you ready, Patrick? For the minutes? Are you still reading? Oh. Okay, okay, all right. We ask for a motion to approve the minutes. We'll get a second, and if there's changes, we'll do that during discussion. So is there a motion to approve the minutes? Okay, Haynes, the first, second.
Second.
Jennifer, any discussion, any changes, anything that anyone saw needs to be amended? All question, to kind of speed some things up a little bit. All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? 2 abstentions, Patrick and Jennifer. Motion carries. Okay. Right, thank you for that. Do we have any public comments? Any public comment?
No one's online that I can see.
No one? One in the room? Okay, no public comments, okay. Guest speaker, moving on to, what?
So forgive me,
Oh, you're forgiven, thank you. Okay, he can't make it today, so it's gonna be coming up in August. Roy Gibbons will come in office, so it won't happen this time, so no worries. Thank you for reaching out. Right, okay. Communication reports, any things from the EEOAC office first?
Nothing I can think of. Yeah, how's
Okay.
quiet month?
Okay. Trying to just check a few things real quick. I think, unless I missed it. I think I missed it. So, maybe we should send this out. There was. Yeah, maybe I missed it. What's going on, but there's a draft letter that went out to thank folks, and we have some comments in it. Did we get any stuff on the members? I know I made some.
we only received comments from you
Okay.
so far, no one else. I've yet to draft, that
Okay.
thank you letter for the CPA site.
Yeah, okay. So, all right, well, but that went out to, which is,
The requests for comments?
Yeah.
Yes.
okay, all right, so,
I don't think I sent the letter just yet, though.
no. But,
But I will.
but we'll have the letter, but, if anyone has if anyone has, comments that they wanted to add, they should do that. But they did write that was the process that we asked. So, I mean, if not, and we don't see anything in writing, or if we see something that you want to verbally say now, then we're gonna send that letter out, it's gonna be closed. Okay, so we already had a comment period, I'm gonna give people a chance now if you want to add something to that, so you can take a note to it. Patrick?
Oh, I thought we agreed we was gonna see the letter at the meeting before it went out.
Okay,
I do wanna add to it, I just didn't have a chance.
Okay. okay.
This past week,
That's true, we did say we would send the letter out to review, but here's what I'm getting at, I'm sorry, that is the point. My point is that I'm trying to get at is if hopefully I thought we were gonna see it this meeting, but if we send the letter out, because we do need to get some timely correspondence and there's not any feedback for the letter, then we send it back to review for everybody to look at. So now we're like at 2-3 months to get a thank you letter out that needs to actually go out in a timely manner. So, what I will ask then is, if you have some comments or thoughts, maybe you can write them out today, and if you can get that letter drafted, sometime soon. But I'm hoping we're not gonna have to do like major changes to that, but we'll incorporate people's comments and then I'll take a look at it. We'll get it out.
So for a deadline, the end of this week,
Yeah, let's do that. Okay. Let's do
and
that.
then after that, I can create the letter and send it to them.
What I'm asking, no, actually, like I said, I have the letter drafted
Yes.
by the end of the week.
Oh,
If people have comments, they need to either do it now or send it in because you already made the request. And then so on Friday, we will send out the letter for review. And if there's no other comments, we're just gonna give it out.
okay. What's the deadline for the committee to provide me the comments?
Probably you want to draft it on Friday? Okay, so, close it Thursday. So we'll draft it Friday and you'll send that out. Everybody will have a chance to do a final look, okay? All right, yes, sir.
will there be any discussions in public or, because like will we see it before it gets drafted? I mean, before it gets sent, because I think
Yeah,
that,
he's gonna send that out for folks to look at.
but will that be in public? Can we have that? What if it's a discussion about the letter? That's my
Okay, I
question.
mean,
That's my question.
all right, this is what my belief is, that's fine. But I just kind of stated I don't think it should take like 2 months for us to get a thank you letter out for somebody that occurred. So if there's some heavy discussion, I mean, fine. If that's the pleasure, I'm sure they're not, waiting at their desk, waiting for our letter to come, but I don't, that's fine. We can do that if that's your wish. But I am, it's kind of like back with what my grandmother, please, or my mom and grandmother, please, hello, thank you. At the time, otherwise we'll be stretching it out for a long time. So if there's a need for a discussion, we can do that. That's the pleasure of the committee, but I do want us to keep in mind timeliness on letters. Okay, all right, so he'll be sending that out Friday. Okay, I did remember that in the notes, and I wanted to come up with that. So there's no discussion items from the EEO office or anything like that? Okay. There's nothing for me to report other than to talk about the letter. You wondering what that was, so that's forthcoming, so thank you for that. Corey and Richard, okay. If nothing else, then we'll move on to item number 7. And we'll do our workforce statistics.
So we are looking at General Services Workforce Statistics Report for 2022. And looking at Table 1, total number of employees for 2017 was 184. Minority representation was 176, or 36.4%, and female representation 75, or 15.5%. For 2022, there were a total of 382 people, employees. Of those, 160, or 41.9%, were minority, and 55, or 14.4%, were female. Looking at Table 2, for the job category, the highest categories were skilled craft workers with 178. There were no females in this particular area, and 48, or 27%, were minority. Next highest was service maintenance with 64 total employees. Of those, 14, or 21.9%, were female, and 49, or 76.6%, were minority. And last, there were 28 officials, administrators. Of those, 4, or 14.3%, were female, and 11, or 39.3%, were minority. Moving on to Table 3.1. The total number of new hires was 34. Of those, 18, or 53.9%, were female, and minority. And of those, 3, or 8.8%, were female. There were no rehires for this period. Looking at Table 3.2, for terminations, there were a total of 31 terminations. Of those, 11, or 35.5%, were minority, and 4, or 12.9%, were female. And the highest area of terminations were retired or disability retirement with 61.3%. Moving on to Table 3.4 for promotions and demotions. There were a total of 16 promotions. Of those, 8, or 50%, were minority, and 3, and 18.3%, were female. And for demotions, there was 1 demotion. Of those, that one was minority. Moving on to Table 4 for discrimination harassment complaints. For 2022, General Services had 4 complaints.
All purpose to say which one this is. Pardon
General Services. 2022.
me. Apologies. With general services.
2022.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Thank you.
And then we'll be reviewing General Services next. Are we ready for that one? So looking at table 1 for 2023. In looking at 2018 numbers, there were 400 total employees. Of those, 154 or 38.5% were minority, and 65 or 16.3% were female. In 2023, there were a total of 384 total employees. Of those, 161 or 41.9% were minority, and 55 or 14.3% were female. Moving on to table 2, the job category comparison. The highest number of employees was skilled craft workers again, with 187 employees. Of those, there were no females, and 56 or 29.9% were minority. Next highest was professionals, with 50 total employees. Of those, there were 20 or 40% and 23 or 46% minority. Last highest category, or I guess the second highest category, was service maintenance with 53. Of those, 12 or 22.6% were female, and 39 or 73.6 were minority. Not sure why I highlighted this last one. Moving on to table 3.1 for hires and rehires. General Services had a total of 42 new hires. Of those, 20 or 47.6% were minority, and 4 or 9.5% were female. And looking at new rehires, General Services had 3 total new rehires. Of those, 1 or 33.3% were minority, and another 1 or 33.3% was female. And moving on to table 3.2, looking at terminations. General Services had a total of 51 total terminations. Of those, 25 or 49% were minority, and 5 or 9.8% were female. And equally, in terms of the most that retired, there were 22 retired or disability retirements, and then 22 employee initiated or no reason given. Moving on to table 3.4 for promotions and demotions. General Services had 22 promotions. Of those, 3 or 13.6% were minority, and 7 or 31.8% were female. And there were 2 demotions for this period. 1 was minority. Moving on to table 4 for discrimination, harassment complaints. General Services had 2 complaints for the 2023 year. And in looking at specific departments for current numbers. Services has 403 total employees currently. Of those, 15.1% are female. I'll give you numbers in a second, and 34.9% male. So 61 total females. And this is, sorry, I'm completely better, my eyes are googly. 342 males, or 84.86%. That's average. Anything specific anyone wants to look at or see?
No, I have some comments that I think I'd like to put in the record, even when it reemerged, something that I brought up in the past. So my one concern comes under skilled labor and, consistently overvote reviews, no females. I know it's a hard pill, not traditional, but that can be kind of amazing to me, not even one person for skilled labor. Secondly, and it would go with diverse recruitment in general. So it's not so much them, I'm just saying whether their methods, but they did look at the methods and so what I would like to have us do in general, because I believe the source of the overall problem of getting ready to do a workforce development conference, as we will bring it back, what happens after 5 o'clock. We have a whole exam process and all those different things. That information does not easily get out to populations that need to hear about it. When we're talking about skilled labor, when we're talking about other types of areas of the general services, when we're thinking about premium jobs with pensions and other kind of benefits, I think the source of the problem, my opinion, is with HR and the recruitment methods. And I'm working with the state of California right now, and they're trying to streamline, trying to figure out ways to work with nonprofits and unions and other groups to get it out. So that's why I think a major source, because what I'm seeing in the comments consistently is what we rely on HR to get our recruitment done. And HR is not getting the recruitment done the way that it probably needs to get done. They may think they are, and I'm not saying that, but I'm saying those systems stop at 5. And when you're trying to be diverse and come up with what I'd like to know is who are they partnering with, all those types of things. Because what we're talking about on these entry-level positions often, it's not just the college students or whatever, that's good. They know how to go to the job fairs, the other ones, the other types of things that I'm talking about. Because I work with BIPOC, Black, Latino, Asian. I work with all these groups. We work on skilled labor and workforce development entry level. And I can guarantee you that they don't know about these jobs. So, so what I would like, we can keep going through the statistics, that's fine. But what I would like to have, and I'm going to be a little bit more direct this time, because I'm going to ask HR to, I want to review their processes, and I want to give them some suggestions, and I'll be able to give something to me. And I want them to do something much different than that they did. They did a good job some time ago when they did the recycling, recruitment for the, what is that, the, not recycling, but for the organic waste. They had a very robust and innovative way, and they were able to pick up a lot of folks. I don't see that happening across the board anyplace else, so, so as chair, I'd like us to make a high priority to ask HR to come in and talk about their recruitment methods and want them to change.
Are you talking about the general services classification specifically?
Nope. The issue, no, because it's not. Well, okay, it could be for general services, but what I'm saying is, when I'm looking at the reports, a lot of them rely on HR to do the recruitment for them. And the way and the methods that they're recruiting, given the diversity goals that the county has, don't seem to be sufficient. They don't seem to be super innovative. They did do some innovative stuff once because I was on the committee and I saw it. I don't see that. Because you're going to be able to come up with boilerplate responses. Well, here's what we're doing, but it's not really good enough. So that's what I would like. One reflection would be general services. To have no women in at least one skilled labor position is remarkable.
I definitely agree with you on, the umbrella unit is the recruitment.
Yeah.
For all the departments. I think there's 30+ departments in the county. They do, looking at general services, they do utilize, some training, civil service rules when they, crew interview. But one of the things that stuck out for me is for 2 years, they hadn't had any type of recruitment activities due to COVID, right? But they still, I believe, still hire people. So my question would be, how did you get that word out? If you were hiring, with the exception of the county's website, they said it's local jurisdictions and industry-specific internet and publications. I would like to know what those are so we can take a look at, like, how do they get the word out? In times of things like COVID. But going back to your point of the DEI and diversity, I do recall bringing up this issue of the diversity inclusion, and I still haven't heard why the DEI has not come to our meeting, because at that point, we can give them some examples. Richard asked me what kind of questions I wanted. This board has to see those questions. I still haven't heard from the CEO or DEI in this meeting, other than we're having a summit. So again, I agree with you, but these questions have been on the table for well over a year.
Yeah, cabinet, and I agree, there's a lot of, they're very related, the work that's being done, and I know that, Stephanie, our new DEI cabinet, director, that she's very interested in the work that this committee is doing and had asked to like see these reports that the departments do, because we're trying to not be, trying to coordinate the work of all the different agencies that are doing this work. So I think that she would probably be more than happy to come to this meeting. I don't know if that's, if we've asked her formally to come or if she's aware of it, but I know that she's very interested. Her name is Stephanie Jackson, yes.
Well, she's the one that's trying to do innovative stuff, right? So maybe we should start there. That'd be good to see, instead of, because I'm just saying, if I see HR again, I'm gonna try to, I'm gonna beat them up, so to speak. I'm not beat them up, but I'm not gonna be nice, because I already know, I do this work a lot, and it's not acceptable the way that they do it. So if there's somebody who's working on something to be innovative to help make a change, because that would be great to hear her ideas and exchange with some of the other ideas, and then maybe that could be a catalyst to get something started, because I don't want to hear the regular, well, we show up, I know you show up to HR, the job fairs, I know that. But my organization, others, we don't get awards, and I don't get state contracts to do outreach because we do outreach as usual. We don't, that's not what we do. So I want to see other people do that. Yes.
It just, I know you wanted to see something, just I want to follow, the work that they're doing right now, the DI cabinet is really foundational right now. It's like really drafting, like the, what do they call them? The bylaws and all of that
Okay.
for the cabinet, and so it's like very foundational right now, but the idea is to get innovative, like that is the goal, is for that cabinet to be innovative, to include community, to have, outreach, and to include, not just, department heads and on the committee, but like at-large members and things like that, so, I know that the goal is to be innovative, but I just want to be clear, like, it's not Stephanie who's gonna be like figuring it all out. She's helping the county and all of us to figure it out and to do innovative things that work for her. But it is slow, it does take time, and it is frustrating because we've been, the cabinet was, created a couple of years ago, and it's taken time to get her hired, and so, and we all know, like, we need to start doing things, and so there's a lot of momentum and energy there, but it has taken time.
Well, we love, I think it would be a good start just to have her, get to meet her and those kinds of things. And that's, anyway, yes, sir.
But be mindful, she's an employee of HR, so just when you're saying you're ready to.
Well,
So I'm just.
Okay,
be
okay.
mindful, she's an employee of HR.
okay,
There's a lot of community, some feedback about hiring someone that's internal to handle things that are, decades and 100 years old. And I agree, it's a slow process, and that's by design, in my opinion. It's not a slow process when they have all these openings, departments hand the baton to their friends and families. That's not a slow process. That's a regular process. It's a slow process when people said, hey, enough is enough, and the spotlight is on the county. So just be mindful, that person, Ms. Jackson, is an employee of HR. So meaning at the end of the day, there's a hierarchy that she answers to. So I agree, she does not change the whole complexity of the county. It's not as clear as we want it to be as far as somebody that can make change like that or quickly.
yes, sir.
And maybe it could help, since you work in that area, for you to provide some ideas in terms of organizations that you would like for county HR to reach out to. So if you have a list of those agencies, that might be helpful.
Yeah, I mean, I could put some lists together. I think what I, I'm pretty, like everyone else busy. I would like is maybe, okay, here's what I would say. So as, chair or one of us, if the county is amenable to that, or this DEI committee, to ask, if there's, community members or people that are doing some of the work, could be on the committee. I don't know whether that's the process. I can tell different things, but I don't want to just generate, letters. I've been in an international organization, check my profile, and I already know what bureaucracy. So I've been on 5 DEI diversity committees, and 0 changed. So as a officer in that organization, I refused to be on any more committees because they said, well, what do we need to do? And I got a list, and I said, well, it's what we wrote in 1968, 1970, 1980, 1990, 2000, and with just a small change in the lexicon of the type of words, because we were talking about, people from the 60s versus, but it was still the exact thing. So I could give you a list of what that would be, but it's just, whether they want to do that. And I guess in general, what I would say is look at trusted, you got unions and trusted community-based organizations that can be the ambassadors to be able to get that word out. And we can find those people, because the county stops at 5. That's part of the problem. these other neighborhoods and hardworking people, they're just getting off work and they don't know how to navigate this process. So that's what I wouldn't mind being on a committee, or the state of California has a committee they're forming, where we can get a bunch of, people that can give the right information on how to get that information out. So maybe we'll start there, and then I can generate a list of stuff of what they could do, or recommendations.
Yeah, so a little over 2 years ago, I asked for the CEO to come because the CEO was planning, former CEO was planning that whole DEI cabinet.
Right.
And I'm still trying to find out why, because at that point, we could have offered some input, like how were, members selected for the DEI? There weren't any labor members selected for the cabinets. It was just leaders of different departments for the most part. There's some caucus leaders, but how? Like, who built this foundation? They did get feedback from company, I can't remember the name.
Sylvester Fennell.
No. They had a they did
Respected or knows.
they did the feedback.
I can tell.
Like
MRG.
Yeah.
MGT or something.
Yes, company that usually governments use.
From far away.
Well, I think they do a lot of DEI stuff for governments. And so the county hired these people, but at the onset, we had a really good opportunity to ask those questions, like how the cabinet members were chosen. I still would like to know that. They do have a website that's the background. They have documents that are background, but for this committee's purposes, we had an opportunity to ask, like why labor was not a part of that cabinet, when they represent most of its employees. I know LGBT wasn't represented to one of the caucuses. Presidents called the former CEO and said, hey, we're not represented. And she said, oh yeah, you're right. So again, Ms. Jackson would be appropriate, the CEO.
Right, the new Martinez, right? What's his?
The CEO.
Yeah.
Would be appropriate. Ms. Jackson would be appropriate to come so we can ask those questions. And if they want our help, if they want our input, while they're still building on the foundation, I think that would.
What's Mr. Villanueva's first name?
Thank you.
Yeah, I heard he's a people. I heard he's a nice guy. That may be more meaningful. So, how about this? It's in our, I'm going to go back to the statistics, but it's in our notes of other next steps. So let's, so I think the two people, thank you, Amanda. I think two people that we need to ask to come in, since now there's a new change of guard, new folks, is CEO David Villanueva, and then Stephanie Jackson, and have them come, and then we can talk about representation on the committee and ask. I mean, even when sometimes they're asking, why do we want them to come in? So here's, I think we could tell, we want to ask about recruitment methods, and we want to ask about inclusion of community members and unions on the committees, and also and their criteria of selection. Are they open to innovative suggestions? I think those would be good questions to start with, in my opinion, to start with. All right, so I'm going to put the union. Selection. All right. Thank you all. If you look at the agenda, if we look at other business, it's something that's been on the agenda for a while. And it kind of stood out. So I just brought that up with respect to commentary. So I appreciate Amanda and Patrick's additional feedback. And that's a good start. Change of the guards happen. Any other discussion. I don't think I want to necessarily bring in general services, because I don't think we're talking to the right group. Because from their notes, this is who they, how they utilize it, and I understand, because that's not their bailiwick to go and do that type of stuff. We rely on others to recruit. So I don't think we need to bring them in, but if somebody else wants to bring them in, we can.
I just asked them the questions, like, I had questions about how did they recruit if they didn't have any. They didn't think on page 2, it says, 2023 and 2022.
We went to job fairs, other places, et cetera.
But it says due to ongoing COVID pandemic and associated social distancing guidelines, representatives of the department attended 0 recruiting and or informational events in 2021 and 2022. Because my question is, how did the word get out when you had openings besides the website, the county website? And what are those industry-specific internet and print publications? Like, could we get those names in lieu of them coming? Maybe we can get them to answer that question. That's number 4 on page 2 for 2023. It'd just be interesting to understand, because somebody's getting the information.
Okay, if, okay, we could do that. I mean, my guess is they're just gonna say they did through social media and word of mouth. I mean, and
We
we
don't want to guess. I want them to answer that question.
okay, so, question would be for general services, during the pandemic, what were their methods? How did they do that? Obviously, people were hired. How did they go about it? Yeah.
County exams for these classifications, do we know if there's a question in there that says, how did you hear about us? So if that's the case, is that a criteria that we can pull for a certain department to say it's not at the moment?
So you will collect and they collect it.
Thank you.
That might be an interesting way to, because I get that it's self-reported, but right now, I mean, I don't even know that if we ask the department, how do you get this information out there? You don't know what you don't know, right? So if somebody is landing the link to the exam and they're marking a question where it says, I heard about this via LinkedIn or Facebook or Instagram, or I saw it on a bulletin board or something, and they're checking that box. And it's a metric that the department is able to pull and say, you know, this percentage of people that we hired in this year heard about us through X, Y, Z.
I think that's a good one.
I'm just going to have to explain, I mean, having experience working in employment services, there are targeted agencies that that employment services usually sends bullets to. So, I mean, that's just one thing. And it could be because of COVID, they weren't doing those things, but employment services would be a good, since they're the recruitment group, they would be the source for who they send those announcements to.
And to add on to that, I think it would be more interesting to hear what they're doing now. As opposed to, I don't care so much what they did during COVID, because we don't have some of those same restrictions. So it's like, what are your efforts going forward?
So I care because in my 24 years in the department or in the county, it's always a reason. It's always a reason why we didn't hire this group, or it's always a reason. So I wanted, since this is the foundation that we have to work with, and this is, we don't have can't even see the current status because it's small print, but this is what we need to work with. So I care.
Okay.
Because again, I looked at some of the census from 2020, which is what we have to work on. And you see the ethnicities, two or more races, Asian, Black, Hispanic, are all lower than the county's census for that department. So if the word is getting out, I'd like to know how, specifically what are those industry websites that they recruit to? Like, what are they? So we can actually maybe get the word out to those people who might not know where to look. We can also start backwards. Let's find out who they hired and let's just go from who they hired. Are they friends, families? There's a big issue with nepotism in this county. So I guarantee you, somebody got the word out.
Right, but here's what I'm
How?
Here's what I'm going to respond to that with. But I hear what you're saying. When we're talking about there's always a reason, because there always is one. But when we get into ideas of nepotism and cronyism and all of those, I mean, that would be their job to investigate, because no one's going to tell us that, like, how did you, they're not going to tell you or anybody what you're asking for. No one's going to say that. So it would be, I don't even know if that will even be our opportunity to investigate that. I'm not saying that we can't ask. I'm just saying, I think we all know we will not get an answer to that. When we're talking about those kinds of things, right?
Maybe not.
Okay.
I mean, I don't know.
Do we want to, so here's what I'm going to ask. So do we want to, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Well, the deputy director at the time, Gladys Deloney, I had brought this up in 2014 about the nepotism and favoritism that goes on in our department. And she did check into it, and then her solution was she trained all the supervisors. And for the near future, she told me, well, if you see it about to happen, if you know about it, to let her know, send her an email or anyone else. But her solution was to train all the supervisors about that. That was back in 2014.
My solution on that, and I hear that, my solution would be that we challenge HR and all of the recruitment to say, I want to see you, I want to see your methods of actually getting out to diverse communities and seeing how many people applied. And then we'll look to see what your selection process was based on that. Because if we're not going out to recruit the people and the people don't know about it, then there's no way. That's the only way you can counter that, to say I'm going to give you an example, and this is other. So I've worked with 2 major agencies, 3 of them. One is a major grocer, one is a major utility in the area, and so forth. So they asked us, because I'm going to give you an example for linemen, right? Just one example. So I went in their deal, and I looked and saw pictures of all the graduating classes for 20 years. And I just couldn't hold my tongue anymore. So I just kind of looked and I said, I don't see any women. I don't see any people. The person first, when I had a book, I said, I just want to ask you about these pictures up here. And he said, yeah, they all look like they came from the same family and cousins and whatnot. I said, yeah, absolutely. And he said, so what are we going to do about that? So they're opening it up, and I'm challenging them. Others are challenging, because here's what they said. They said that most people qualify for the initial qualifications to apply. Now, this is, I'm talking for them, for Caltrans. I'm sure it's the same for the county on the exams. You initially qualify, but then there's another set of other kinds of skills that they're looking for. Or there are other individuals that do not know how to describe the skills. Like, did you use hand tools? Did you use this? Did you use that? I mean, there's simple jobs that your average person already had experience with. Whether they came out of second chance hiring, other kinds of situations, they all did it, but they don't know how to apply. And they don't know how to describe it. So when the exam comes, they're disqualified. or not moved up the ladder because they don't know how to apply. So what they did is they said they came to these different nonprofits, and ours was one of them that, gets, like I said, 2023 nonprofit of the year for state of California, and we've gotten it 3 times because of equity outreach. We get certain grants from the state to say, can you help us with the outreach? So anyway, us and others, and then they said, have the individuals apply, and then let us know, like, did they come out of your workforce program? Can you have somebody to vouch for them? Are they somebody, from a pastor or from some sort of community leader to say, this person's legit? Let them in, and we will take that into account to select them to be in a training program that they put together to help give people that access that they never had, because they're always being disqualified. Those are simple jobs that we're talking about here. And yet there's still no people. So I know that, Phil. So that's what I'm saying is that's the way that we counter that. That's the innovation. And then if you don't see people getting hired because they've been exposed, then we know that you can point out that that's cronyism or some other kind of nepotism. Something's happening while you're not picking them because we made them available. We have organizations that are out there recruiting for you. So that's where I think would be the counter to that instead of asking them other. I mean, I'm not disagreeing with you, but I don't think they're gonna, you gotta have data to be able to challenge them.
We do have data, sir. I want to respond to that.
Okay.
She had her hands.
It's good.
Well, I know for a fact that the state of California, when they're recruiting, a lot of departments now, they're having you fill out a form saying if you're related to anyone in that department, okay? They want to know. So you have to do that up front. You can't wait to get people in and start doing surveys. Oh, did you? No, before you hire them, you give them this form. I have copies of it. You give them this form, you say, we need this completed, okay? That way it puts everything out there, everybody can see, and they go into detail asking questions. It's not, and then, okay, no, they ask you some pretty detailed questions, and I think that's important, especially if it's a problem. Sounds like it is. So it might be.
I remember the state was having a problem with that, and then my sister and my friend that works there is saying that it's cut down a lot. It's
Right,
changed.
yeah, and guess what? They're still doing that. They're still, so maybe it was, but yeah, if it, they're still acting like it is, because they're having everybody fill those forms out.
Thank you for that.
So I just want to respond. So I think the county, we ask those questions as well. Like, are you related to somebody? Still doesn't stop it because what's happening, from my experience and knowledge, you're my brother, right? I can't hire you necessarily in my department, but I can call somebody on the other side for that same classification. They'll hire you. So it doesn't look like you're just getting hired.
Well, they,
anyone
in that department, though,
They still,
okay,
they still.
in that department.
So in the county, we still get that question, but institutional racism is highly sophisticated. So the minute we say, look what you guys are doing, there's people behind the scenes who said, how can we undo this? How can we fix this? When they create a DEI, no one has answered why. And they use George Floyd as like a spearhead and other, things that happened in 2020. But what about those other 20, 30, 40 years? So they put things in front of us and then they say it's a slow process. But again, institutional racism is very, very sophisticated. So the minute, because I've seen the trees of all these people who've been hired in our department. In 24 years, we've had 5 Caucasian directors. We don't represent 100% Caucasian. We don't service 100%. So how did these people ascend to the top? Because if
They
you
also had someone working within the office. We had a PM
Right.
and her brother was working.
brothers, cousins, so again, they ask those questions.
I agree.
But if you're
Because that's, can I pause just one? Well, you finish your thoughts and I'm gonna.
all I'm gonna say, if you're behind the scenes
Yeah.
that ask for those positions, you help make the test, because you work with HR to create the test, the interviews, the selecting who goes to the interview, the questions, and then who gets hired. This is why these numbers are skewed for years and years and years. So how do we break into that? Because it is a very, very tough game. And people are not giving things up voluntarily. Not doing it.
So, one moment, the reason, so I'm kind of sticking to a little bit of a protocol because last meeting, there was some issues about,
I was here,
were you there?
Yeah.
Okay, so you got, okay, I didn't know if you were here.
wasn't involved. in it.
Okay, so I'm just gonna call, if he has the floor speaking, or you or whoever will stick with that, and we'll go. Okay, so Paul, go ahead.
So, that sounds like an ethical thing right there, though, when you have people and, when you have the same people writing the questions for the exam, that's a conflict of interest. So immediately, the county should have some kind of protocol in place for that. But I can tell you, when it comes to these forms, maybe you don't think it works, but I think we have people signing stuff under penalty of perjury, and it should be. And if it's brought to anyone's attention, you start escalating that stuff. You have a legal department. What are they gonna do about it? Okay, so we shouldn't have to, micromanage every little thing, but I'm telling you, when people start reading that stuff and they understand and they get questioned about it, and you start signing stuff under penalty of perjury, you can lose your position. Guess what? That's a good start, I think.
Thank you. So let me ask one question. Yes, go ahead.
I was just gonna say that there is a question on the same form where it asks you, where did you learn of this position? Because I recently kind of applied, this is fresh in my head. There is a portion that asks if you're related to anybody in the county, and it's very specific. It asks for their name and it asks for the department. So there already is something in place, and it's on the same form. It's a supplemental questionnaire, where it asks also, like, where did you learn of this? Where did you see this vacancy? Where did you learn of this appointment? So they have it. I just don't know how it's, right? I don't know how it's enforced, but they definitely ask. They do ask it. It is on the form. I've seen it. It's one of the last questions, and it asks for the department and their name and relationship. It also asks, like, what is the relationship? Yeah.
Before we submit, isn't there an attestation that everything that we provide on the form is true and correct?
It's on that same form you're signing, just like she said. It says on there, you're to the best of your, you were signing, putting your name that you agree to the answers are truthful.
We do the same on voter registration forms, right? Because we get that question a lot, like, how do you know? Well, they signed under penalty of perjury that everything that they provide on this form is true and correct, and we do take the.
It's on good faith that you're accepting what people are saying.
Okay, well, Mr. Joe. Yes.
My question is, does the county have an anti-nepotism policy? I don't think so. So we can answer it, but that doesn't. Again, it goes back to these stats. It does not change the stats because, yeah, I think we have those questions, but I don't think we have an anti-nepotism or favoritism policy. So I don't know how good that helps at the.
There should be one.
There should be, definitely.
So I wrote that down. And so I think what we have is I'm just putting down some boxes and so forth. I think we have a couple of good dynamics taking, but I want to move on to the next set of staff so we can continue that. But here's what I'm going to say. One question first, and it's just more of a straight question. And we're asking, so here's one I think we all agree to, that we would like Deputy Jackson and David be in the way, but to be present to come before this committee. Hopefully be like July or August or September.
I'll send out invites.
Yeah, so this was probably, I'll put it up if you can invite, if you say if you can. Because it's on the agenda, it's been asked for, and they haven't been for a couple of years. So this one would be, so what I would say is, from the chair, I'm saying that I would like them to appear before us within either the month of July, August, or September. Give us a reason why not, because we put in the request, submitted the request for a couple of years. So this would be a high priority. Okay, number two is, and I think we have a set of, I've been putting some boxes around my notes. I think we have when they do come, we have a set of questions or at least some recommendations of some things or questions to ask that we'll be able to present, because that's also been, so even when that letter goes out, I can work on it with you. I have a set thing that I circled, and then you'll have a few notes on the minute of what we're asking for. But I think we have some things that are gonna be very detailed, so I'll be able to help with that. Thirdly, is do we need, I have one other recommendation, but thirdly, I think that when we're talking about a man, which I thought was great, when we're talking about, at least initially, community and union representation and so forth, depending on what they want to do, the EEOAC committee does have some of that. There's at least two of us that are from the community. There's at least two union people. I'm not going to, but I put in my 10,000 hours on the subject of workforce development. It's part of my campaign platforms and other kinds of things. I know what I'm doing on this particular subject. So I think that one of my recommendations would be that today, this committee, since it's starting, would include some representation from the EEOAC, because we are looking at the stats and we also have some community knowledge that I think would be helpful. And we could pick a department head. So that's a recommendation. That it's not anything official, but when they come, that's what I'm going to say. But as a member there, maybe you could take that back to, there's a lot of, people that know what's happening here, I think. Yes, sir.
And again, for the CEO, Richard asked me what would I like to ask? And I think he gave it to the committee, so we can revisit some of my questions and add, take away. But I think Richard gave it to the group a couple of months ago, because I remember somebody asked to see it.
Would you like me to resend it?
It's up to the pleasure of the chair. I just didn't want to revisit
Let's
with my questions.
resend that, because I can just add to what I've seen, and all y'all can add your questions.
Yeah.
But this time, I understand when we bring them in, because we have been studying, we've been concentrating on this issue, we have, some more substantive types of stuff that we could ask, that I think will be helpful, and you can prepare for that, and you can think about those things. So my other last question is, because we're talking about general services, we've asked for Stephanie Jackson and David being away from the company. Do we need, Jeffrey Gasworth? Oh, whoever is the department head of general services, do we need that?
Currently, it's in Westerville,
Okay,
so there isn't a true department head.
yeah. Yeah,
He got promoted, right?
Yeah,
He did.
did, I think they're still trying to fill that department.
so maybe we shouldn't ask that, because we already asked him to come in. I mean, he's the one who brought in some innovative stuff, but also there's a lot of, in my opinion, a lot of extra stuff. I want to get some real answers this time, so, because if he's not going to be in charge of it, then that's not going to do us any good. Okay, all right, so, if nothing else, we can continue to move through the stats. Got one more?
I would like my question answered. So in writing to the group, or Mr. Fidel could have this,
What's your question?
my question of where do they recruit? I haven't heard, yes, that's something that we can ask. Because we don't need them to show up, but I still would like that answer.
Well, I wrote that down, and I'm saying when you ask for your questions to be found again, and I'm also.
No, for general service, sir.
Oh,
You asked, do we have any other comments, questions
Okay.
for this?
okay, general services. Okay,
And because Mr. Fidel is the acting, I heard you say you've already heard from him for something else. So are we,
I mean, I'm just saying, I don't think we're gonna get. Sure, we could ask that question.
and again, I don't want to be a mind reader, because I agree, probably not going to get the answers we want, but at the same time,
Okay.
I think having an answer is better than guessing.
Okay, so there's two letters going out. So we got,
Mark?
yes, sir. Yes, ma'am.
So when you talk about where did they recruit, are you talking about in terms of specialty
Yeah, what are
Associations.
they? Yes, on page 2, let's see what year is this? 2023, I think in 2022, page 2, number 4. They advertise in industry-specific internet and print publications. What are they? I was curious to what are those?
I think they're gonna be different
Yeah.
depending on the job
And,
type.
and I was gonna say
Well,
that
can we get some-
if you wanted, if we want us to try to find out which ones they advertise
Yeah.
for specific job postings, because it's specific to when
Sure.
when they do. That will probably be a question that employment may be able to answer, because the department a lot of times will let employment know you need to go with these publications, because like they may not know. Like I may know Society for Human Resource Management is a HR organization. And the employment office, I guess in that case they would, but I mean, employment office usually doesn't know what all the industry specific ones are. So, but also I think there's a communication in there, so we can check with employment to see if they have information about that, where some of these jobs were posted.
So when you say employment, do you mean HR?
HR,
Okay.
I'm sorry, Employment Services
So,
Division.
okay, because I was like,
Sorry.
so they help the department with their recruiting efforts, right? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, if they're saying that they relied on employment services and there was,
It doesn't say that. It just says they advertised county website, local jurisdictions, industry-specific internet and print publications. My question is, can they name them? So maybe we'll do our due diligence to check,
so we
down the line. Because I heard you say we don't care about then, but let's see if it's there now, or, when they open, like, how do they recruit? Because they
Yeah.
still hire, at some point, they still hire.
Yeah, like I said, we can check and see if employment had, because employment services may have that information of where some of these, and yeah, we can check with them, say where they post these job classes for this department.
Yeah, that's my only question. They don't have to come in and say it if you guys are doing it.
Yeah.
Form, necessarily. Okay. But it'll help.
Yes,
Isn't it a part of the exam process for personnel services to work with the department, to ask the department, okay, so this is your area of expertise, where would you like this information posted? And so, for example, for my department, when I'm asked that type of question, or one of the SMEs are asked that question, they're going to go with the organizations that are most closely related to our industry. So it's going to be like our California Association, our National Association, those type of things. Is that what we're?
Yeah, in fact,
So DPS would have that level.
based on the exam requests, departments typically provide a list of the agencies that they might advertise.
Well,
So
okay, but see, so that's, and I really appreciate that, but from my ears when I hear that, then this is kind of where, like, I think the disconnect comes, from, we're trying to get information to access to other types of groups. So if we go with what our associations, what I'm trying to say is there are plenty of, it looks like we're looking at entry level positions. There are, well, let me just give one on engineering. That's an engineer. Okay. So when I worked for the state of California, this is what I'm going to give you a prime example. When I worked for the state of California as an engineer, there were two African Americans in the entire state for the drinking water program. And this is how the recruitment, and I went to UC Berkeley and I saw an entire class of 8 new employees within my department come in from one class from environmental engineering at UC Berkeley. All of them were not from diverse pools, and their answer was, oh, we don't really know where those individuals are. And I said, well, heck no. No. There's Society of Women Engineers, there's National Society of Black Engineers, which I'm a member, there's Society of Hispanic Professional Engineers, which I'm a member. I said, did you recruit from any of those places? They did not. They're not recruiting because I saw what I was right on I know the campus. So what I'm trying to get at is when we're looking at diversification or just getting people's feet wet. We can't just go with the status quo. We can't just go, well, here's, well, I'm not attacking your situation. I'm just saying, if that is the method, then what I'm also putting out as strategy would be that when we're talking about some diverse populations, they may not get there. I'm just, from my own example, they may never get the information to say, I want to apply to that. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
So, I know at least for my department, we worked with labor, we met and conferred, with our exams themselves, right? Because we know that for entry level positions, it could be anybody. So we have actually made our exams easier for anybody to be able to qualify for entry level positions, for them to even get their feet through the door. Because these are just clerical skills that anybody would be able to access, right? So to your point, it's going to be more broad. It's going to be all of your community libraries. It's going to be your, community-based organizations that we reach out to. And this is, I think, to the point of, what Patrick was saying is that it would be good to have some sort of countywide guidance or policy in which it is uniformly maybe applied across all of the departments, right? Because what I do in my department may be different than what others do in their departments. And so it's just based on where the need is and where we at some point realize that some of our classifications don't need to be specific. So we worked with labor to make it so that it would be easier for anybody to qualify to be able to get a job, right? We could train on the spot. There's a lot of training on the job that goes into a lot of these positions throughout the entire county, right? It's just, where do you want to invest? Where the county departments should invest their time and effort and energy. Because not everything needs to be certified or certificated or, vocational or training. Like, a lot of it is on the job training.
Yes.
So how do we close that gap?
I love that. So those are, that's why I'm suggesting is one of the recommendations that, because we always talk about, well, what kind of committees do we get to serve on? We're kind of the standalone committee, but we're actually thinking about some of the stuff that the county HR and personnel services and so forth needs to be thinking about. And there may be some solutions that we have in here because they're not spending the time looking at the stats, and we're I love what everybody's saying. So I think, because it also says, well, what kind of committees do we sit on? Those were some of in the guidelines, we sit on committees so I think we could be on, some of us at least, if this body could be on a committee that's actually looking at these solutions, because everybody's, having some terrific ideas. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
And like you said, just recommendations. Again, because I do sit at labor meetings and the departments, they tell us about their hiring, openings, things like that. But labor doesn't make the final decision or help with the hiring. And, again, the county does a decent job at hiring the entry level positions, because those positions are, the skills needed to get in the door might not be as high. Problematic is these promotions and decision makers, and that's for me, when I talk about who makes the decisions at the end of the day. And that's where the county lacks, because they hand the baton to the next person. Like, the directors are appointed versus interviewed. So a lot of that is by the CEO, appoint you to direct this department.
They're not interviewed. Are you sure about that?
They're interviewed, but, well, for our department, from my understanding, CEO appointed the last director. Am I incorrect on that? Somebody help me. Were they appointed? Because I thought Ethan Dye was appointed.
You can be appointed, but he's not sure interviewed.
But again, these people were told years before that they're gonna be the next director. Because I've seen people say, my hero is this person who's the next director years before they're appointed. These things are not secret. And I'm speaking from my department, my experience, are not secret. And so again, when we have these committees, like I said, these committees slow down these processes of change, unfortunately. This is, you put it in a committee, it slows it down. 2 years, we've asked the CEO, now we're talking about it today. Because I heard somebody, I think Corey said, oh, let's give them a chance to get going. Why? Why do we wait? I heard Mr. Villanueva wants this committee gone. He doesn't want this committee. So these are things that I've heard. I've seen a letter drafted that said our DEI efforts are successful because of union participation, and they have not even addressed the union. I've seen a letter already drafted. That's legit. So they've already decided it's a success,
Well,
and they haven't even gotten started
Well,
when I just heard.
so I think that's, so I'm hearing that. So I think that's why we're gonna ask, because what we have is also part of the public record. And we'll be able to ask the questions that we need to ask, and, you know, we could ask them, hey, is that on your agenda to remove this committee? And, I'm sure he'll probably answer otherwise, but it'll be on the record if it is.
It's on the record that I said.
Yep, right now. So, all right. Okay, all right. So, I think that's a good, robust discussion. All right, so we have a few minutes left. Are we okay to move to the next agenda, please? Unless there's other discussion, but very good stuff. All right, we'll go to the next one. We might be able to do
So we have Department of Health Services, 2022 Workforce Statistics Report. And in looking at table 1 for 2017. Sorry that they're a little off. Health Services had a total of 1,885 employees. Of those, 1,107 were minority, or 58.7%, and 1,486, or 78.8%, were female. In 2022, there were a total of 1,056 employees. Of those, 663, or 62.2%, were minority, and 814, or 77.1%, were female. And part of the reason for the drastic change in numbers is in 2017, the Department of Health and Human Services was one large department, but in 2022, they had split into the Department of Health Services and the other department that was affiliated with Health and Human Services was,
Child, family, and adult
Thank you.
services.
yes. So that's the reason for the change, in the large number. So in moving to table 2, the job category comparison. The top 3 areas were professionals, 584 employees. Of those, 462, or 79.1%, were female, and 318, or 54.5%, were minority. The next highest category was office clerical workers with 161 employees. Of those, 126, or 78.3%, were female, and 123, or 76.4%, were minority. And last, paraprofessionals with 134 employees. Of those, 99, or 73.9%, were female, and 104, or 77.6%, were minorities. Moving on to table 3.1 for hires and rehires. There were a total of 136 new hires. Of those, 101, or 74.3%, were minority, and 103, or 75.7%, were female. And looking at new rehires, there were a total of 7. Of those, or 57.1% were minority, and 5 or 71.4% were female. Moving on to table 3.2, for terminations, there were a total of 120 terminations. Of those, 64 or 53.3% were minority, and 100 or 83.3% were female. The highest areas for terminations were employee initiated, no reason given, with 61 or 50.8%. And retired or disability retirement, 41 or 34.2%. Moving on to table 3.4 for promotions and promotions. There were a total of 73 promotions. Of those, 46 or 63% were minority, and 56 or 76.7% were female. For demotions, there were a total of 7. Of those, 6 or 85.7% were minority, and 4 or 57.1% were female. At discrimination, harassment, and complaints, table 4, there were a total of 9 complaints.
I have some comments, but it won't take very long. Let me see if anybody else has any. Okay. Any thoughts? Okay. I've seen these statistics, and I can tell you one reason that they're doing well, they're doing well. The number one reason is because they've already made strides to become diverse, and because they are diverse, let's say it's still these systems that we're talking about, they get the word out, and they can get it out to diverse populations. So they're not really struggling with letting people know that this is, a diverse, culturally, at whatever diversity statistic that we're looking at. You can look at that. We don't have LGBTQ plus IA on here, but, my guess is they'll do fine in that area also, my guess. That's sort of what we're targeting. So when I had that one notion a while ago about an award, or recognition, the MVP, that was part of where it was coming from. Some people are doing it right and others are not. I mean, it is a field that's more attractive probably to diverse groups, true. That's true. But I'm just going back to my regular old school stuff, right? There's no affirmative action basically allowed seriously in California anymore, but people know who they know and they tell who they tell. And so if the population and the people in various roles are diverse, they will get the word out to diverse groups of people. That is kind of an automatic. Like I can tell you, well, I'm part of an Iranian American Cultural and Education Center. 2 years ago, I didn't know any Iranians, but I could recruit. I know who I know, but I know quite a few African Americans, and I know of quite a few, females because of what I do, what in their particular field. So anyway, this is just an example of how we can be successful. And what I wanted us to, and I don't really see the benefit possibly right now pushing the MVP award thing right now. I'm looking more and more because there's more serious things to look at. It might help, it might not, but that was kind of my approach. But there are organizations, departments that are doing well, and part of why they're doing well is their representation. And so, I would like to commend them, but I don't know how to do that. So one of the things is that we've already brought them in before, but if anybody wants to bring this particular department in, to say how well they're doing and what they're doing, then, make that motion.
Which department?
This is, Human Health Services. Yeah.
Write them a letter.
Okay. Okay.
I mean,
So,
we can write them a letter.
yeah. Yeah. So we'll generate something that just says we commend them. Yes, I'll add to, yeah, I'll add some stuff to it. Okay. Thank you so much. Any other comments? If not, a motion to close the meeting, please. And in a second. Okay, Amanda first, second, Jim. All of the favor? Thank you all. We did make some progress. I'm on our best meeting. Those are cool glasses there. I like that.
On to the hot sun.
Someone have a market ticket or a QR code that meantime? There was one.
Like there's one more.
Oh, okay.
I don't, is it always policy like when we come here that we have to, they almost made me an address to get here, if I take off my belt.
Oh, you're part of the public.
Yeah.
Can
Yeah,
bar.
anybody ever brought that up?
They just asked to see your employee badge or.
Either you have to have your badge or.
Yeah.
Are you good?
They're really curious about that.
I don't have.
Which,
But I keep the way, I'm asking.
a lot of the workplace violence issues are just from employees coming back,
Yeah,
I guess.
but good point.
It's not me, I'm not the source.
they have a badge, they're gonna access us anyway, right?
Yeah, she's trying to buy and.
If they need to have find them, maybe.
Here. Oh, I put mine over there.
Thank you.
What department?
Or here, she used to work at, right, this is it. Department of,
Oh, we work in this building?
It's not.
Collections.
Oh, so she works.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, I did not.
Awesome.